Hello students. Today we'll be discussing again Laka's seminar, and in previous lecture obviously we had seen the repetition concept of Laka, and today we'll be moving on to interconnected subjects, that is the Oedipal triangle. Uh, so to begin with, we had seen that in Poe's story places the central personage of childhood fantasy, that is the king and queen, at the center of the action. Although in a fairly displaced fashion. In fact, protecting the queen's honor and status becomes for Dupin and the police force the focus of all their action. Next, although Lacan does not refer to Freud's essay, a special type of choice of object made by men, he clearly seems to suggest that the impulsion for locating the letter can be found in what Freud labeled the rescue fantasy. So, what is rescue fantasy? Wherein a man seeks out as a love object a prostitute or sexually compromised woman in order to rescue her. So, you can just recall Somerset Maugham's of human bondage story, or you can just go for the reference of this story and understand what exactly he's trying to say here. It is just simple that obviously rescue fantasy means wherein a man seeks out as a love object a prostitute or sexually compromised woman, fine, in order to rescue her. That means by doing that he feels that he is rescuing her. Now, such a fantasy has its origin in a repressed Oedipal fixation on the mother that occur when the male child first begins to understand the nature of sexuality and his own conception, that is by touching the mother. Now, such a complex, of course, give rise to what Freud defined as the primal scene fantasy paths. So, primal scene fantasy, we obviously have seen in the story, is where the minister steals the letter or purloins the letter. So, a situation in which a child or childlike subject position stand as voyeur to the act of parental intercourse. So, it's parental intercourse itself a symbol to the viewer of the sexual power of the parents and viewer's own desire to witness his or her own conception. That means the person who is witnessing this act of sexual performance is trying to analyze or understand his own power, that how he or she would be, right? So that is what he's trying to explain here. Now, when Laka identifies the first purloining of the letter in the Queen's boudoir as something like primal scene, that means that is the first scene. It's sort of like if in terms of Freud, we can say this is the first observation of the Queen about what the minister is doing or like the scene we were talking about in the previous paragraph. So he is situating his own reading of the power of language to circulate and mutate, like the letter, within traditional Oedipal Freudian theory. So such a reading makes Minister D the child. That means if we read it from that point of view, then Minister D becomes the child in a nursery drama. So caught in a displaced and elided power struggle between two powerful parental figures. So here the two parental figures are the king and the queen, right? So he is behaving like a child because he had stolen the letter. The purpose of the stealing here surely is to gain attention of queen. In what way, obviously he has discussed further in the story in the seminar also. Poe has discussed in the story and Laka has discussed in the seminar that why had he attempted or why he had stolen the letter. So here that Minister D chooses to threaten to expose the sexually compromised queen recalls Hamlet, or as Freud would observe, the male child's rage and jealousy that he is forced to share his mother with another and more powerful male. And here it is not his father, it is other men. Right? So here the son or the child, if we talk about a Freudian theory, is jealous of the adultery of his mother. And in the same way here, Minister D is also jealous of the other men. Fine, because the queen has given herself to that man, and Minister G is feeling that the queen is finding the other man more powerful as compared to him. Fine. So that is the like psyche which has like made him steal the letter or purloin the letter, and then to fix the queen in a threatening or a confused situation. Now moving on, next we can say the symbolism and the moments of desire in text. So clearly by this point in our discussion we see that the purloined letter is the central symbol in the story. But we also see that there is no easy equation in what that letter signifies, for its meaning has shifted throughout the course of the story. It has not remained stable. It has moved from one point to other point, or one meaning to other point, other meaning. Now, in Dupin's recovery of the letter, we begin to see how complex and complicated the letter really is. And when Dupin enters the sitting room of Minister D, he quickly scans the surrounding and realizes that his opponent would have counted on the police to ferret out every secret nook and cranny of his room, because it was obvious if the police will come, then obviously they'll try to search the letter or search for the letter from their own point of view or from their own perception. We had already discussed in the previous class. Now here, and so he has outwitted them by hiding the letter in plain sight. So he knew that what perception the police will have. That's why he, instead of hiding, the Minister G, instead of hiding the letter somewhere in the nook and cranny, has kept it in a sight, in front, like in sight of everyone. But nobody is noticing the letter, because obviously that is unexpected by the police, that he will keep, the police will keep the letter in such a way. Sorry, the minister will keep the letter in such a way. Now here, the letter is now hanging on a pasteboard rack on the mantelpiece, soiled and crumbled, nearly torn in two across the middle, again symbolic to the female body or the body of the woman, who is divided into two. And obviously, as we have already discussed, that the letter here is symbolic to the female body or the body of the woman, who is like passing through the hands of many men. Now, a more symbolic description of the sexually compromised mother could hardly be imagined. But the author actually goes further in his defacement of the female body. It now appears entirely worthless, had been altered with a large black seal bearing the D decipher very conspicuously, and was addressed in a diminutive female hand to D, the minister himself. That means the minister was smart enough to copy the female handwriting, and in this case he had tried to copy the handwriting of Queen, just to show that the letter was addressed to Minister G by Queen herself. Fine. So in a way he is trying to hide the letter, or hide the identity of the letter. Fine. So whereas earlier in the story we were led to believe that the motive for stealing the letter was political, but now it appears clearly Oedipal. That means there is a complex in the mind of Minister G, because of which he had stolen the letter. And in earlier analysis, we had seen that it was maybe because of political gain or some favor that he wanted from Queen. That is why he had stolen the letter. But now it has changed. The prospect or the motive of the stealing has changed entirely when we apply this theory. Fine. Now, the letter has been seized by the son, so that he can, here the son means Minister G, so that he can through his own fantasy work and calligraphic flourishes become the Queen's lover himself. Now by copying the handwriting of the Queen, he has become the Queen's lover himself. And what was the fantasy which was working in his mind? That he has to be the lover of the Queen, because he was jealous of the other men with whom Queen was involved. Fine. So that is the reason that he has changed the handwriting and the address of the letter in when he had hidden it for himself, or in that house, in his house. Now here, he has even gone so far as to imitate her handwriting and conduct an imaginary affair uh, with himself playing both parts. Fine. So here he has played both parts. Fine, being the lover and the loved, because here it's not actually the queen who is loving him, it is his own fantasy in which he has that imagination, or he's imagining that the queen is loving him. So Narcissus, obviously, if you have read Ovid's Metamorphosis, then you must have read about Narcissus also. He is a character in Greek mythology who is son of river god and nymph, and he was distinguished for his beauty. He was very beautiful. Fine. And according to Ovid's Metamorphosis, book 3, Narcissus' mother was told by blind seer Tiresias that he would have a long life provided he never recognized himself. That means Narcissus should not look at himself, not recognize his own face, because it was said that it was obviously very famous, or it was very known to the people in his surrounding, that Narcissus was one of the most beautiful person of that time, or in his area, in his place. So everyone, whoever looked onto him or whoever looked at his face, fell in love with him. So that is why it was instructed to his mother that he should never look at his face himself, because the day he will look at his own face, he will fall in love with himself. And that is what happens when he finally goes to drink water from a river. He looks at his own face and then falls in love with himself, and then finally he just he's obsessed with his own beauty, and then obviously he starts looking for himself, his own self, and then likely that to console himself from that of his own self. He cannot find the other side of himself in person. So he dies in that self-love. That means he is like the lover and the loved, both. So the same thing is said here about the Minister G also, because he has also become the lover and the loved in his own fantasy, in his own imagination. The queen is not actually loving him, but yes, he has imagined that it is he himself. He is being loved by queen, and he himself is the lover. Fine. So this scene is the first scene of displaced and substituted desire, and this desire we see in the Minister G, with the body of the letter serving as displacement of queen's body. And by occupying the letter, fine, he is having that imagination, or in a symbolic way he feels that he has captured the queen. That means the queen is under his control. Fine. So in a symbolic way, he has tried to keep the body of the queen with himself, and here it is not the body actually, but the letter which he had kept with himself. Now finally, in this second and the more bizarre way, we can say, odd in the rhetoric of the story, moment of desire occurs because Dupin goes home, prepares a substitute letter, and stages an interruption and theft that mimics the minister's purloining of the original letter. Now, Dupin's letter is not blank inside, because he has left a message for Minister G, because he claims that the minister at one point of time did me an evil turn. Fine. So he had done something bad with Dupin, so obviously he had to take a revenge in a way by stealing the letter. He has taken revenge of that act, or that deed which was done by Minister D towards Dupin. Now, and therefore Dupin is determined to leave him a clue as to who had outwitted him. That means who was finally able to decipher his code, that means of hiding the letter. To this, he copies a message which is obviously in French, but when we translate, obviously the translation which was done by Mebert, so it is like a baleful a plan, if unworthy of Artius, is worthy of Thyestes. So this intertextual passage of course stands as the ultimate moment of desire in the text, revealing that the letter has been passed between men. So the brothers, Dupin and the minister. So obviously we'll just go into the detail of the story also, which we have just discussed here. So here the brothers have become Dupin and the minister. How? Just as the bodies of women have been throughout in history. That means it in history also we have seen, even if you have read Metamorphosis, or obviously that was prescribed in your syllabus in your graduation. So you must have seen that when the brothers win a fight or war, the women whom they have won from, I mean the king whom they have defeated, they used to steal the wife of that king. So they used to uh, exchange, or they used to share the wife of that, or the queen of that king, between or among the brothers. And that is what is happening here between Dupin and minister also, because here they are acting as brothers. The one has like taken away the right of other by stealing his wife, and here in case Dupin has stolen the letter from the hands of minister. Now, just as the bodies of women have been throughout the history, so in its allusion to the curse of House of Artius, the passage fingers the ancient wounds of murder, adultery, fratricide, incest, cannibalism, power, and revenge. Few allusion carry so much of fright in such a compact space. Now we'll just see. So twin sons, the story, the lines which were mentioned by Dupin are like this, like comprehended. It is twin sons Atreus and Thyeste killed their half brother Chrysippus at the instigation of their mother Hippodame, and then began their maniac struggle to gain the throne of Messene. Thyeste seduced his brother's wife Aerope, and Atreus retaliated by cooking the son of Thyeste and serving them, as well as their decapitated heads, to their father at the feast. So this was the revenge taken by one brother against the other brother. So the curse that Thyeste placed on his brother was soon fulfilled when the only one of Thystes' surviving son, Aegisthus, the product of incest himself, killed Artis and thereby restored his father Thyeste to the throne. So this was the meaning of the line which was written by Dupin when he stole the letter from Minister G. So this is how it goes on. Now, by placing this passage with its horrific allusion to familial perversions in his own letter, familial perversion, because obviously it was like the deceiving perversion of the female, due to which this massacre had taken place in that family. Now, Dupin reveals more about himself than he perhaps realizes, right? So he has revealed about his own psyche by writing this message, that what exactly was inside his mind, fine, though he does not realize that what he has done by quoting or writing this line. But on further analysis, we can say that full of self-righteous anger towards Minister D for the theft and dishonor of a lady, he repeats in substituted form the same theft of the same letter. That means he is stealing the same letter. In a symbolic way, we can say that he is stealing the body of a woman, and here it is the queen, thereby placing himself in a chain of signification that allies him to his dark brother. That means Minister G here has symbolically become his dark brother, as in the case of the story that we had discussed in the previous slide. Now the minister, in an act of displays incestuous longing, fine. So like the doubles in William Wilson, Dupin and the minister shadow each other in the action and pursuit of what Lacan calls the oddest odor de femina, the immense female body stretched out across the minister's office. That is what he had like interpreted. Lacan had interpreted it like. Now, until the reader knows that these two characters are meant to be understood as the split of manifestation of a single yet bifurcated psyche. That means they are the single person, but yes, they have bifurcated a psyche, right? So it is split self, right? We find almost similar psyche of the minister and Dupin. That is why Dupin is able to decipher the code of Minister G. Now, but beyond the pursuit and recovery of the letter as a substituted and displaced quest to regain the unsullied mother, The chain of signification in the story leads, according to Laka, to an awareness of the inescapability of death. That means we cannot escape death. It is destined. The moment we are born, the letter which is meant to which is meant for our name or in our name will reach us. That means the day we are born, we are meant to die. Fine. So it doesn't matter like how long or like what duration it is going to take, but finally we are going to meet the destination. So here the letter also discusses becomes symbolic to the destination, which we will discuss further in the next lecture. Now what are you? Figure of the die I turn over in your encounter, Taiche. Fine. With my fortune, nothing if not that presence of death which makes of human life a reprieve obtained from morning to morning in the name of meaning whose sign is your crook. So we in fact understand that the act of reading about the circulation of a letter of desire written to a desirable woman. We are inserting ourselves into those moments of desire in the text in which, when it speaks the authors, the characters, and finally our own desires. Fine. So like literary voyeur. Voyeur means a person who derives sexual pleasure from secretly observing others' sexual act or action. So we place ourselves in the boudoir, that means the chamber where or the room where the queen, king, and the minister Ji were standing or were seated, between figures on a page who are ultimately acting out the fantasies that we read in them. I hope you have understood today's lecture. With this, I end it. Thank you all.